The old man shifted slightly in his chair, the firelight catching the lines on his face. 3 children sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes wide but voices quiet, listening as he spoke. The room was dark except for the warm glow of the hearth, and the world outside seemed to pause, as if waiting for the story to begin. "Long ago," he began, his voice calm and steady, "there was a city that most people have never heard of." The crackle of the fire punctuated his words, each spark a quiet drum in the night. The city, he continued, was neither grand nor famous, but it held secrets that would have changed the course of history, if anyone had remembered them. He paused, letting the silence stretch. The children leaned in closer. Even the fire seemed to lean toward him, flickering slower, listening. "People today," he said softly, "imagine history as battles, kings, and heroes. But sometimes the real stories happen in the quiet corners, in alleys no map remembers, in homes no chronicler writes about." A small gust from the fireplace sent a warm breeze across the children's faces. The old man let his eyes wander over the flickering flames before continuing. "In this city," he whispered, "a young apprentice lived. No one knew his name. No one would ever write it down. And yet one night he did something that, if recorded, could have altered the way we remember a famous war." The children shivered, not from cold but from anticipation. "The night was ordinary," the old man said. "As ordinary as any night you have ever slept through. The moon was high. The streets were silent. Even the dogs slept." He leaned forward slightly, hands resting on his knees, voice dropping to a gentle murmur. The apprentice was not brave by choice. He was clever because he had no other option. He carried messages that no one else dared deliver. He walked paths so narrow, so shadowed, that even the city itself seemed to hold its breath as he passed. The fire crackled, a tiny explosion of sparks. The children's eyes were fixed on the old man. They didn't blink. Even time itself seemed to slow, letting the story settle into the room. He could have been anyone, the old man said, but his actions were enough to save or doom hundreds of lives. And yet the world forgot him entirely. A pause. The flames danced quietly, warming the room, filling the silence with their gentle rhythm. "History," he said softly, "does not always remember the quiet ones. Sometimes it only writes about noise, about spectacle. But tonight," he added with a small smile, "we will remember him." Another pause. The children shifted closer to the fire, their small hands clasped together, their breath slow and steady. "And if you listen carefully," the old man whispered, "you may hear not just the story, but the weight of a single life that history forgot." The fire crackled again, steady, patient. The night stretched on, and the story began to unfold. The old man leaned back in his chair, the firelight tracing the contours of his face. "The apprentice moved silently through the empty streets," he said softly. "Every step had to be careful. Every shadow could be dangerous. Every sound could betray him. The children's eyes followed his every word, as if they could see the narrow alleyways themselves. Most people would have turned back," the old man whispered, "but not him. He had a purpose, even if the world would never acknowledge it." He paused, letting the quiet of the fire fill the room. Outside, the wind stirred, but inside, the warm glow of the hearth cocooned them. The city was asleep, he continued. Windows shuttered, dogs asleep by the hearths. Even the guards trained to patrol had settled into exhaustion. The night seemed empty, but the danger never sleeps. The apprentice carried a small pouch. Inside, messages that could determine the fate of many. A single mistake, the old man said, could cost lives.
And no one would ever know.
He had no sword, no armor, nothing but his wits, his feet, and his courage. Yet that night, those were enough. The fire shifted, sparks drifting lazily upward. The children leaned in closer. Even the shadows on the walls seemed to wait. The streets twisted like a maze, the old man whispered. Narrow paths that only someone who knew the city intimately could navigate. Every corner hid potential peril, but he moved as if guided by the moon itself. He lowered his voice further, drawing the children into the moment. By midnight, he said, he had reached the gates of the old castle. No one saw him. No one stopped him. He delivered the message quietly, precisely, perfectly. A faint crackle from the fire punctuated the silence. And then, the old man continued, he vanished into the darkness again, leaving nothing behind but the echo of his footsteps. The children's breaths were slow now, their imaginations vivid yet calm under the warm glow. He did not know whether his actions would succeed, the old man murmured. All he knew was that he had done what was necessary, and that sometimes necessity outweighs glory. The fire flickered, sending long, soft shadows across the room. And this, the old man said, is the part history forgets. The quiet courage, the invisible deeds, the single night that mattered more than anyone could remember. He paused again. The room was still. Even the fire seemed to listen. But don't worry, he whispered. We will remember him tonight. And perhaps in remembering, we can rest a little easier ourselves. The children, now almost mesmerized, stayed silent, and the old man allowed the pause to linger. The story unfolding slowly, as the warmth of the fire and the weight of history merged into one gentle, quiet night. The old man shifted in his chair, the children leaning slightly closer, still silent, still captivated. The night passed quietly after the apprentice disappeared into the shadows, he said softly. But dawn always comes no matter how carefully you move through darkness. The fire flickered, sending gentle light across the walls, and even the shadows seemed to bend toward the story. When the first rays touched the city's rooftops, the old man continued, the apprentice's deeds began to ripple, though no one could see it yet. Some guards woke to find orders changed. Some messengers stumbled into new instructions. And yet, the city continued to sleep unaware of the invisible hand that had moved among them. The children's eyes widened slightly, their tiny fingers curling around their knees. He had acted with precision, the old man murmured, because mistakes were unforgiving. One wrong step, one misdelivered note, and the entire plan could collapse. A soft crackle from the fireplace marked his words, like punctuation in the quiet night. The apprentice had no ambition for fame, he said, no desire for recognition. His courage was silent like the city around him. And that is why history never remembers the quiet ones, though sometimes they shape the world more than kings or generals ever could. He paused, letting the warmth of the fire fill the space between words. By mid-morning, the old man continued, rumors began to spread. A message delivered, a warning ignored. A shift unnoticed by most, but crucial for the fate of many. The children remained entranced, their breath slow, matching the gentle rhythm of the flames. The apprentice never returned to any celebration, the old man whispered. No praise, no gratitude, only the quiet knowledge that he had done what was necessary. And that was enough. Another pause. The firelight danced lazily, highlighting the calm determination on the old man's face. And this, he said softly, is what most people forget when they read history books. Not the loud battles, not the grand proclamations, but the single acts of courage hidden in shadowed streets, done by people whose names will never be remembered. The old man leaned back, letting the room absorb the weight of his words. The children's eyes closed slowly, their minds filled with the quiet streets, the invisible deeds, and the fire's gentle warmth. Tonight, the old man said in a whisper, we remember him together, and in remembering, perhaps we understand a little more about the lives quietly lived and the courage quietly given. The fire crackled softly. The children breathed slowly, and the story of one night, one apprentice continued to echo in the warmth of the room. The old man shifted slightly, the firelight catching the lines on his weathered face. The children, still sitting cross-legged, leaned in as if the warmth itself carried the story. By noon, he said softly, the city began to stir. Shouts echoed faintly through the streets. Merchants opened their stalls. Animals were led to pasture. And yet no one noticed the invisible change that had been set in motion the night before. The apprentice had returned home unnoticed. His hands were empty, his heart quiet, and his mind already turning to the next necessary task. You see, the old man whispered, life was not about recognition. It was about necessity. Sometimes the most important acts are the ones nobody remembers. The fire crackled, a small spark floating upward. It was a life measured in small choices, he continued. In steps taken through shadows, in hours spent unseen, and in courage that never asked for applause. The children's eyes were wide but calm, their breathing matching the slow rhythm of the flames. Even today, the old man said gently, we often imagine heroes only in their grand moments. But in reality, it is quiet decisions, invisible acts, that shape the course of history. He paused, letting the children absorb the words. The fire softened, the room steeped in warmth. The apprentice learned something crucial, he continued. That courage is not always loud. Wisdom does not always need recognition, and survival sometimes demands patience more than strength. The old man leaned closer, whispering almost conspiratorially. And in that patience he found power, a power that the loud and celebrated never truly understood. The children shifted closer to the fire, their small faces reflecting its gentle glow. They could feel the weight of the story, without knowing every detail, yet understanding its quiet truth. History, the old man said softly, does not remember the invisible hand. But tonight, here in this warm room, we remember it together. Another soft crackle from the fire. And perhaps, he murmured, remembering is enough to honor the lives that were never written down. The children exhaled slowly, their attention turning inward, imagining the silent city streets, the apprentice moving unnoticed, and the invisible courage that shaped it all. The old man shifted in his chair, the firelight dancing softly across his face. The children, still quiet, leaned closer, their eyes reflecting the warm glow. As the sun climbed higher, he began, the apprentice walked the narrow streets once more. Though the city bustled with merchants and traders, he moved as though the world had paused for him alone. The fire crackled quietly. His voice was low, measured, calm. Every alley held a secret. Every shadow could conceal danger. And yet, he remembered the paths he had walked the night before. Paths no one else knew, paths no one else dared. The children's small hands rested in their laps, their breathing slow, almost in rhythm with the flickering flames. He carried knowledge, the old man whispered, that could protect some and endanger others. And he understood, even at his young age, that knowledge without caution could be deadly. The fire popped softly. The room was still. Only the warmth and the weight of the story remained. The apprentice paused at a small square, the old man continued. There, a messenger waited, silent, tense, almost invisible. A brief exchange occurred. No words were raised above a whisper. No one noticed. Yet that small act would ripple through the city, changing lives in ways no one could foresee. He leaned back slightly, hands folded over his knees, voice steady, almost hypnotic. Most people today, he murmured, would think the day uneventful. But the apprentice knew better. A single misstep, a single overlooked shadow, and all could be lost. The children's eyes widened slightly, but their breathing remained calm, as if the story itself soothed them. The firelight reflected off the cobblestones as he moved, casting patterns that seemed to guide him, or perhaps test him. And in that test, his mind worked faster than his feet, faster than fear, faster than most adults could imagine. A pause. The old man let the silence linger. The children listening, absorbed. And by the end of the afternoon, he said softly, he had completed his task, unseen, unheard, yet victorious in the quietest way possible. For history remembers only the loud, but true courage often whispers. The fire glowed steadily, its warmth filling the room, and the children sat still and mesmerized, as the old man leaned back, letting the weight of the story settle gently around them. The old man leaned forward slightly, his hands resting on his knees as the firelight flickered across his face. The apprentice returned home, he began. But he carried more than just messages. He carried the weight of choices, decisions that no one else could understand. The children, still quiet, shifted closer, their tiny eyes fixed on him, absorbing every word as if it were a soft melody. In a city that never truly slept, the old man continued, every action had consequences. A misplaced word, a forgotten step. Even the smallest hesitation could change the course of lives. The fire crackled softly, its warmth filling the room and echoing in the silence. The apprentice knew this, the old man whispered. He felt it in the pressure of the night, in the narrow streets, in the shadows that seemed to watch him, and yet he did not falter. He paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. The children exhaled slowly, their breaths calm and steady. Courage, the old man said, is often quiet. It does not announce itself. It does not seek glory. It only exists in those who act when others remain still. The fire flickered again, sending tiny sparks into the air. The apprentice understood that history rarely notices the silent ones, the old man murmured. But tonight here we remember him, and in remembering we honor the courage that went unseen. Another soft pause. The children's eyes closed briefly, and the room was filled with the gentle hum of warmth, as if the fire itself agreed with the old man's words. Sometimes, he whispered, the greatest lessons are learned not from victory or defeat, but from surviving unnoticed, from choosing wisely when no one is watching, from moving through shadows with purpose. The fire burned steadily, and the old man's voice, calm and measured, wove the story around them like a soft blanket. And now, he said softly, the apprentice waits for the next challenge, for the next night where courage will again be tested. But tonight he rests, as do we, in the quiet warmth of a fire-lit room, knowing that sometimes the smallest actions hold the greatest weight. The children shifted slightly, settling more comfortably, their imaginations wandering the quiet streets, the invisible deeds and the courage that history forgot. The old man shifted in his chair again, letting the firelight play across the wrinkles of his face. The children's eyes were wide but calm, their small hands resting in their laps, listening intently. The apprentice did not speak of what he had done, the old man began, because some deeds are too heavy for words. Some nights leave marks on the mind that no one can explain. The fire crackled softly, as if agreeing with the weight of his words. In the shadowed streets of the city, he continued, he had seen things that no one else would ever notice. Silent exchanges, whispered warnings, fleeting glances, each held meaning that could save lives or destroy them. The children leaned closer, their breaths slow, matching the rhythm of the flickering flames. Every step he took, the old man whispered, was a choice. Every decision a test, and every shadow could hide either danger or opportunity. He paused, letting the words sink into the quiet room. The warmth of the fire wrapped around them like a blanket. The apprentice learned something crucial that night, the old man said, that courage does not announce itself. Wisdom does not seek recognition, and survival is often measured in patience, not speed. The children's eyes glimmered in the firelight, their imaginations painting the narrow alleys, the unseen threats, and the quiet hero who moved among them. The city slept on, the old man murmured. But change had already begun. Small, invisible shifts that no one would record. No one would remember, except those who watched closely. Another soft crackle from the fire. The apprentice returned home once more, his mission complete but his mind restless. The weight of history was on his shoulders, and yet he had no time to dwell on it. For life in the city never paused. And the next challenge would come soon enough. He leaned back, voice calm but filled with meaning. "And now, children," he said, "we sit quietly watching the fire and remember the unseen courage of one small life. Sometimes the world only changes in silence, and tonight we are witness to it." The fire glowed steadily, casting long, gentle shadows across the room, and the children closed their eyes, imagining the quiet streets, the invisible deeds, and the courage that history forgot. The old man did not raise his voice. He never did. The fire didn't need loud words to be felt, and neither did history. "Children," he said softly, "there are moments when the world seems unchanged, but beneath that calm surface, something important is already moving." The apprentice woke before sunrise, not because of noise, not because of fear, but because his mind had learned to listen to silence. The city looked the same, the old man continued. Stone walls, narrow streets, tired faces. Yet the balance had shifted, just slightly, just enough. The children could almost see it now. A medieval city breathing slowly, unaware of the forces shaping it from within. "Power," the old man whispered, "rarely announces itself. It moves quietly, through people who do not seek it." The apprentice walked past guards who never looked at him twice. Past merchants arguing over bread, past priests speaking of fate and destiny. None of them knew how close they were to disaster or survival. "He understood something most never do," the old man said, leaning back in his chair. "That history is not made only by kings. It is made by ordinary people who choose carefully when the moment comes." The fire popped gently. One of the children shifted, sleepy but listening. "That day," the old man continued, "no bells rang. No announcements were made. But plans were altered. Movements delayed. Lives quietly spared." The apprentice did not smile. He did not celebrate. He simply continued living. "Because that is how invisible work survives. History books," the old man murmured, "will never mention his name. They will speak of treaties, battles, and rulers, but not the boy who walked unseen and changed the direction of events." The room felt warmer now, not from the fire, but from understanding. "And that," the old man said gently, "is why you must listen closely to quiet stories. They are the ones closest to the truth." The children's breathing slowed. The fire settled into a steady glow. And somewhere between waking and sleep, the medieval city continued to exist, unchanged on the surface, forever altered underneath. The old man rested both hands on the arms of his chair. The fire burned lower now, slower, steadier. The children were still awake, but only just. "Days passed," he said softly, "and the city returned to its routines. People believe routine means safety. Most of the time, they are wrong." The apprentice blended back into ordinary life. No one watched him. No one suspected him. That was the greatest protection of all. "The changes he set in motion," the old man continued, "did not arrive like thunder. They arrived like mist. Quiet, slow, almost invisible. Trade routes shifted slightly. Guards were reassigned. A meeting never happened. A conflict quietly dissolved before it could begin. No songs were written," the old man whispered. "No medals given. Yet lives continued that might not have." One of the children swallowed softly, half asleep, still listening. "This is how history truly moves," the old man said. "Not in dramatic moments, but in careful adjustments made by unseen hands." The apprentice noticed the difference only in small ways. Less tension in the streets, fewer armed patrols, more ordinary conversations. He understood then, the old man murmured, that success does not always look like victory. Sometimes success looks like normal life continuing. The fire sighed, settling deeper into glowing embers. "Years later," the old man went on, "scholars would debate why war never came. They would argue over documents, dates, and leaders. None of them would ever find the true answer. The children's breathing slowed further. Because the true answer, the old man said quietly, walked through shadows, made careful choices, and asked for nothing in return. The apprentice aged. The city changed. Empires rose and fell elsewhere. But that one night, the old man whispered, remained sealed inside him. A reminder that he had once stood between chaos and calm, and chosen calm. The fire dimmed, glowing softly now. And that, he said, is often how peace survives. Not through strength, but through restraint. The children barely moved now. The room was heavy with warmth, the kind that pulls the mind downward, toward rest. And tomorrow, the old man added gently, history will continue pretending. It understands itself. He leaned back. The fire breathed once more, and the quiet aftermath settled in. The old man's voice grew softer, not weaker, softer in the way night becomes morning, without anyone noticing. Children, he said gently, there are lessons history never teaches out loud. Not because they are unimportant, but because they are too quiet. The fire had settled into embers now, a steady, comforting glow. The children barely moved. The apprentice lived a long life, the old man continued. He married. He worked. He aged like everyone else. No one ever called him a hero. No one ever asked what he had done. And that, the old man whispered, was the reward. Because praise brings questions, and questions bring danger. He understood something powerful, the old man said, that safety is often built by people who accept being forgotten. The city changed rulers. New banners flew. New laws were declared. But peace, he murmured, remained. Fragile, quiet, imperfect, yet alive. The apprentice watched generations grow. Children who never knew fear. Families who never fled war. They lived, the old man said, because someone once chose silence over glory. One of the children shifted, half dreaming now. When he grew old, the old man continued, he sat by a fire very much like this one. And sometimes, he told stories, not of battles, not of kings, but of ordinary nights. Careful choices, and the importance of doing the right thing, even when no one is watching. The fire glowed warmly. He never said his name, the old man whispered, because the story was never about him. The room was almost still now. And that, the old man said softly, is how history truly survives. Not through remembrance, but through the lives that quietly continue. The embers pulsed gently. The children breathed slowly. And tonight, he added barely above a whisper, you don't need to remember anything at all. Just rest. The old man shifted in his chair, the firelight tracing the lines of his face. The children leaned closer, their eyes heavy but attentive, listening to every soft word. After that quiet night, he said, the city seemed unchanged. The streets wound through the walls. Merchants went about their routines, and yet beneath the ordinary, life had shifted. A message delivered unseen, changed paths of many lives, and the apprentice had done it without notice. He paused. The children's breathing slowed, and the shadows seemed to listen. The boy walked unnoticed, he continued, through alleys of damp stone and baked bread. Every step deliberate, every glance measured. No fear, only purpose. The city sleeps unaware, the old man whispered. But the smallest acts ripple outward, altering lives without anyone knowing. The apprentice understood that. The quiet ones often hold the most power. The fire crackled softly. One could be brave, he murmured, without being praised, without leaving a name behind. Courage moves silently, like a shadow shaping the world. The children's eyes grew heavier. The warmth of the fire and the story, melding into calm imagination. He understood patience, the old man said, that sometimes surviving unseen is more powerful than any battle. His choices guided the city quietly, preventing disasters no one remembered. The fire settled, glowing steadily. History celebrates noise, he whispered, but true heroes move in silence, in shadows, in small moments. Tonight we remember them. Tonight we honor courage unseen. The children's breathing deepened. The room was still, and the city, the apprentice, and history itself, merged softly into the night. The old man sat quietly in his chair, the fire burning low but steady. The children barely moved now, their bodies relaxed, their minds still following his voice. The city, he said softly, continued as if nothing had happened. Markets opened. Footsteps echoed on stone. People argued, laughed, lived. He paused. But what they never knew, he continued, was how close everything had come to changing. The apprentice moved through the streets like any other day. No one watched him. No one questioned him. That was the safety of being ordinary. The boy understood, the old man whispered, that the greatest protection is being forgettable. The fire crackled gently. A word spoken at the wrong time could have ignited conflict. A meeting allowed to happen could have ended lives. But small changes, delays, silence, patience, kept the city balanced. The children's breathing slowed further. He learned that history is fragile, the old man said, and often held together by people who will never be thanked. The apprentice noticed the results only in passing. Guards relaxed. Tension faded. Arguments ended before becoming violence. No celebrations followed. The old man continued. No one knew peace had been protected. And that is how peace prefers to live. Quietly, the fire's glow softened. Power, he murmured, does not always sit on a throne. Sometimes it walks through alleys, makes careful choices, and disappears. The apprentice carried on with his life. He grew older. He blended in. He never spoke of what he had done, because survival, the old man whispered, sometimes means being unseen. The children shifted slightly, half asleep now. Years later, he said, people would debate history. They would ask why war never came, why chaos faded. They would never find the answer. The fire burned steadily. The answer, the old man said softly, was silence, patience, and one ordinary person choosing calm over glory. He leaned back in his chair. And tonight, he added, we remember not a name, but a truth, that the world is often saved by those who leave no trace. The fire glowed. The room grew still, and the city slept peacefully, never knowing how close it once came to waking in fear. The old man did not move for a moment. Only the fire shifted slowly, gently. The children were quiet now, listening more with their breathing than with their eyes. The city slept well after that, he said at last. Not because it was strong, but because it had been careful. The apprentice became what he had always appeared to be, an ordinary man. He woke with the morning bells, walked the same streets as everyone else, and blended into the rhythm of daily life. That was his greatest skill, the old man whispered. Not secrecy, not speed, but patience. The fire gave a soft crackle, as if agreeing. He learned how fragile order truly is, the old man continued. How easily fear spreads. How quickly people follow noise instead of reason. The apprentice watched from a distance. He listened more than he spoke. He noticed small tensions before they grew. A harsh word. A gathering crowd. A rumor carried too far. And when necessary, the old man said softly. He acted just enough. Never more. A message delayed. A warning whispered. A meeting discouraged. Nothing dramatic, the old man murmured. And that was the point. The children shifted slightly, wrapped in the warmth of the room. History teaches us to look for moments, he went on. But real change is usually slow. It creeps forward through routine, through people who refuse to rush. The apprentice understood that rushing was dangerous. Urgency created mistakes. Mistakes created chaos. So he lived carefully, the old man said. He chose calm conversations. He avoided sharp opinions. He allowed others to believe they were in control. The fire burned low, steady, safe. Years passed, the old man continued. New rulers came. New laws replaced old ones, and yet the city endured. Not because of strength, not because of pride, but because enough people chose restraint. The apprentice never called it heroism, the old man whispered. He called it responsibility. The children's breathing slowed further. He understood, the old man said, that the world does not need more loud voices. It needs more careful ones. The apprentice grew older. His steps slowed. His role faded naturally into memory, but the habits remained. The old man continued, listening first, acting last, choosing peace when possible. The fire glowed warmly. And that, the old man said quietly, is how a quiet life can shape an entire city without ever leaving a name behind. He leaned back in his chair. The greatest influence, he added, is often invisible. The fire breathed softly. The children rested between waking and sleep, and the city, unaware of its guardians, continued living, steady, calm, and intact. The old man's voice grew slower, not because he was tired, but because the night had learned how to listen. The fire no longer crackled loudly. It breathed, soft, steady. The city, he said gently, never knew who protected it, and that is why it survived. The apprentice faded completely into ordinary life. No secrets, no missions, no whispers in dark streets. Just mornings, work, evenings that ended quietly. That was the final lesson, the old man whispered. To step away at the right time. The children barely moved now, their breathing slow even. Most people believe influence must be visible, he continued. That power must be seen to exist. But real stability works the opposite way. The apprentice watched the city one last time, without intervening, without correcting, without guiding. He trusted what he had helped create, the old man said. A balance strong enough to survive without him. The fire glowed warmly, casting long shadows that barely moved. History continued, the old man murmured, as it always does, with mistakes, with corrections, with quiet endurance. The apprentice accepted that some tension was natural, some conflict unavoidable, but disaster, the old man whispered, was no longer inevitable. He allowed himself to become invisible. Truly invisible. No one noticed when he stopped watching, the old man said. And that meant he had succeeded. The children's faces were calm now, their minds drifting. Years later, the old man continued, people would describe the city as fortunate, well-positioned, stable. They would never ask why. And that, he said softly, is how the best outcomes feel. Ordinary. The fire settled deeper into embers. The apprentice understood, the old man whispered, that the greatest gift you can give the future is not control, but preparation. He leaned back slightly. You do not stay forever, he said. You shape gently, then step aside, The room felt heavier with calm. "And when your work is done," the old man added, "nothing dramatic should happen at all." The fire glowed. The city slept. And somewhere between thought and dream, the idea settled gently that quiet lives, lived carefully, often leave the deepest marks of all. The old man did not speak right away. The fire was almost silent now, no longer dancing, only glowing. The children's breathing filled the room. "When things settle," he said softly, "time begins to feel different, slower, gentler." The city entered such a time. Days passed without urgency. Weeks folded quietly into months. Nothing demanded attention. Nothing threatened collapse. "That," the old man whispered, "is how stability feels. Unremarkable." The apprentice lived his final years without watching shadows or listening for danger. He listened to mornings instead, to footsteps outside his window, to ordinary conversations that needed no caution. He had learned, the old man said, that peace is not an event. It is a habit. The fire's glow softened further. The city no longer required guidance. He continued. People argued and resolved things naturally. Mistakes were corrected slowly. Fear no longer ruled decisions. The apprentice observed once more, not to intervene, but to understand. He saw that restraint had taught others restraint. The old man murmured. Patience had created patience. The children shifted slightly, deep in sleep now. He accepted something difficult. The old man continued, that you cannot protect the future forever. You can only prepare it. The city aged. Buildings weathered. Generations replaced one another. And yet, the old man whispered, the rhythm remained calm. The apprentice felt no pride, only relief. He understood. The old man said that his purpose was never to be remembered, only to make forgetting safe. The fire dimmed into embers. History. The old man continued slowly, moved on without noticing him. And that was the final success. The apprentice passed quietly, leaving nothing behind that demanded explanation. No disruption, the old man whispered. No reaction, only continuity. The room was very still now. And that, he said gently, is what the world needs most. People who finish their work and allow life to continue. The embers pulsed faintly. The city slept, the old man said, and for the first time in a long while, it slept without being guarded. The fire breathed once more, then rested, and time itself seemed to slow, stretching softly into the night, carrying the children fully into sleep, and leaving the story behind like a quiet, completed thought. The old man remained still, as if movement itself might disturb the quiet. The fire no longer flickered. It simply existed. The children were asleep now. Not suddenly, not deeply, but gently, as if the story had carried them there step by step. When a life is complete, the old man whispered, it does not announce its ending. It fades naturally, like a sound growing distant. The city continued without pause. No one noticed the absence of guidance. No one searched for protection, because protection had become unnecessary. That, he murmured, is what success looks like. When done correctly, the apprentice's influence lived on, not in actions, but in habits. People waited instead of reacting. They listened instead of shouting. They chose patience, because patience felt familiar. The city had learned, the old man said softly, without ever realizing it was being taught. The fire gave a quiet, steady warmth. History often describes collapse, he continued, because collapse is loud, but stability rarely earns attention. It does not need to. The city aged peacefully. Walls were repaired, streets adjusted to time. Life continued without urgency. No guiding hand remained. the old man whispered. Only balance. The apprentice had become exactly what he hoped for. Irrelevant. And irrelevance, the old man said gently, can be the greatest achievement. The children slept without stirring. Nothing dramatic followed. He continued. No crisis. No awakening. No final lesson. Only continuity. The fire glowed steadily, its warmth no longer noticeable, because it had become expected. And when calm becomes normal, the old man whispered, people stop fearing the future. The city existed comfortably, between past and tomorrow. No one remembered the night, he said. No one asked how peace arrived. They simply lived inside it. The room felt heavy with stillness now, the kind that asks nothing and offers rest. And that, the old man said quietly, is where stories like this belong. Not in memory, but in sleep. The fire breathed once. The city rested. The children dreamed. And the story, having done its work, began to loosen its hold, allowing the mind to drift freely without needing to follow anything at all. The old man did not check the fire. He already knew it would last. Some things once settled no longer require attention. The children slept deeply now, not dreaming loudly, not stirring, just resting. There comes a moment, the old man whispered, when a place no longer waits for change. The city had reached that moment. Days passed without urgency. Nights arrived without fear. Mornings came gently, without tension in the air. Nothing remarkable occurred, he said softly. And that is exactly the point. The apprentice's influence had dissolved fully into routine, into expectation, into habit. No one remembered learning patience. They simply practiced it. The fire gave a faint sound, not a crackle, just a reminder of warmth. When people stop asking, what might go wrong, the old man murmured, they begin to live differently. Conversations slowed. Decisions softened. Even disagreements lost their edge. The city did not become perfect. It became manageable. Mistakes still happened, he continued, but panic no longer followed them. Time stretched comfortably. The old man shifted slightly in his chair, careful not to disturb the stillness. History rarely records moments like these, he whispered, because nothing collapses, nothing rises, nothing demands explanation. And yet, this is where most lives take place, between crises, between stories. The fire glowed steadily, no longer noticed by those who depended on it. The apprentice understood. The old man said that the goal was never peace forever, only peace long enough for people to forget fear. The city forgot. Children grew without hearing warnings. Parents planned without dread. Old arguments lost relevance. Fear, the old man whispered, needs constant attention to survive. Without it, it fades. The night deepened. And so, he said quietly, nothing happened. No turning point. No final choice. No closing moment. Just continuity. The room was silent now, except for breath and warmth.
And when nothing needs to happen,
the old man added, sleep comes easily. The fire remained. The city remained. Time moved forward, without asking to be noticed, and the story, now almost weightless, drifted alongside the night, asking nothing of the mind, but rest. The old man remained where he was, not because he needed to, but because there was nowhere else to go. The fire had become steady warmth. No sound, no movement, just presence. The children slept without shifting, their breathing slow, even unconcerned. When a place has learned how to rest, the old man whispered, it does not need stories anymore. The city had reached that stage. Doors closed at night. Without worry, footsteps echoed softly. Without suspicion, silence felt safe. Nothing called for attention, he continued, and nothing asked to be fixed. The apprentice's work had dissolved completely, not forgotten, absorbed. People no longer reacted sharply. They paused naturally. They waited. The city had learned rhythm, the old man murmured. Not speed, not urgency, just rhythm. Time moved gently now, not pushing forward, not holding back. The fire warmed the room evenly, as if it had always been there, and always would be. History prefers moments, the old man said quietly, but life prefers continuity. The city lived in that continuity. No warnings, no expectations, no preparation for disaster, just living. The old man breathed slowly, matching the room. Eventually, he whispered, even memory grows tired. The apprentice became only a feeling, a calm that no one questioned, a stability no one analyzed. Children grew into adults without learning fear first. They learned routine instead. And routine, the old man said softly, is what allows rest. The night outside deepened. Inside, nothing changed. The fire remained constant. The city remained quiet. The room remained warm. No endings were needed, he continued. No lessons repeated. Everything had already settled. And when the world no longer needs to explain itself, the old man whispered, the mind follows. The children slept. The city slept. Even time seemed to pause. The story loosened further. Words carrying less meaning, more softness. There is nothing to remember now, the old man said gently. Nothing to hold on to. Only warmth, only breath, only rest. The fire did not change. Neither did the city. Neither did the night.
And in that stillness,
the story became unnecessary, allowing sleep to take its place completely. The fire no longer looked like fire. It had softened into color, into warmth without edges. The old man did not move. He did not need to. The children slept so deeply that even dreams seemed unnecessary. When the mind is full, the old man whispered, it searches for meaning. But when it is complete, it searches for nothing. The city outside existed, without asking to be noticed. Streets rested. Walls rested. Windows rested. Nothing listened for danger. Nothing waited for morning. Night does not hurry, the old man said quietly, and neither should you. Time drifted now, like a slow breath that forgot it was breathing. The fire warmed the room. Without sound, without change, the story no longer moved forward. It simply stayed. History, the old man murmured, only matters when we are awake enough to care. But this was not that moment. Thoughts loosened. They no longer held shape. They passed through without stopping. The city did not remember its past. It did not imagine its future. It simply existed. And that, the old man whispered, is the most peaceful thing a place can do. The children breathed slowly. The room followed their rhythm. No lessons remained. No ideas needed finishing. Even the old man's voice grew lighter, as if it too was preparing to rest. Sleep is not the absence of thought, he said softly. It is permission. Permission to let go. Permission to stop holding the day together. The fire flickered once. Not brighter, just gentler. Outside, the city held its stillness, without effort. Inside, the air felt heavier, warmer, safer. There's nothing left to listen for, the old man whispered. No signal, no ending. The words slowed further, stretching into quiet. The story dissolved into breath, into warmth, into silence. The old man remained, but even he was no longer part of the story. Only the night was, only rest, only sleep, arriving naturally, without being asked. There was no clear moment when the night became deeper. It simply did. The fire was still there, but it no longer mattered. Warmth existed on its own now. The old man did not speak anymore. He did not need to. His presence was enough. Quiet, steady, unchanged. The children slept, as if they had always been asleep, as if waking had been the strange thing. Time loosened its grip completely. Minutes forgot how to count themselves. Hours stopped asking where they were going. Outside, history rested. Battles, names, years, and stories lay folded away, like books gently closed without a bookmark. Nothing waited to be remembered. Breathing slowed, not deliberately, naturally. The room felt heavier, not with weight, but with calm. Thoughts tried to rise once or twice, then drifted back down, realizing there was no reason to stay. The night did not explain itself. It never does. It simply allowed everything to become softer. The old chair held its shape. The walls held the quiet. The darkness held everything else. Sleep was no longer approaching. It had already arrived. There was no ending to announce. No final sentence to complete. Only rest, stretching gently in all directions. And if the story continued somewhere, it did so without words, without sound, without effort. The night remained. So did the calm, and nothing, at all, needed to change.